Well, good morning. I'm going to shut this metronome off. It was set at 120 beats per minute because I have an update to the a cadence that I used to sing while in the Army and got threatened with an Article 15 at what used to be called Fort Gordon, Georgia. It's now, I believe, Fort Eisenhower, Georgia, which is a base that has most of the various services there. But since we've added Space Force since I was in the service, yeah. So I'm going to try to add 2 new verses, and to the 3 people who have heard me sing this, yeah, it's time. It's a new year. It's time for a new update. Squeak. Okay, I'll stop pretending to being a cat. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Coast Guard. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Coast Guard. 'Cause they're sitting in their ships getting fat on fish and chips. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Coast Guard. False start. The cadence itself, the instruction is when a service is named, it needs to be called out by everybody kind of thing. But anyway, so I'm going to start again. And I'll probably follow this up with another video of just the cadence. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Coast Guard, in the Coast Guard. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Coast Guard, in the Coast Guard. 'Cause they're sitting in their ships getting fat on fish and chips. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Coast Guard, in the Coast Guard. Example. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Navy. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Navy. 'Cause they're out there on their boats doing God knows what with goats. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Navy. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Air Force. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Air Force. 'Cause all they do is fly, then they crush and burn and die. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Air Force. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Marines. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Marines. 'Cause they're out there on the beach learning basic human speech. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Marines. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Space Force. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Space Force. 'Cause they think their mission is front-leaning rest position. Well, there are no Airborne Rangers in the Air Force. Well, there are some Airborne Rangers in the Army. Well, there are some Airborne Rangers in the Army. The CEO's losing patience singing this the something cadence. Well, there are some Airborne Rangers in the Army.